Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and an honor to sit with you and go over some of these things. I'm so grateful for every one of you. I see quite a few have already joined us on the chat, and that's always appreciated. Please do share the link and encourage our brothers and sisters throughout the earth. So many of them are really dealing with. Well, the thing we talk about every week, right? We say this is one of the things we like to share with people. And we say, we want to be informed without being overwhelmed. And we keep saying that because as we approach those days, it can become overwhelming. And that's not our intention. That's not our desire for our brethren. And in fact, can be very debilitating. And so that's something that we want to encourage people to step back if they're getting overstimulated, if you will, getting too many notifications, staying too much on top of things. That's not good for you. And it also interferes with your calling, with that thing which Elohim has called you to do, right? So we can't spend all our time with that. But we also can't be completely disconnected. So I'm grateful for every one of you that are still connected, that are connected one to another, and are paying attention to the things in our world. After all, we are commanded to watch. So you can't really completely not watch, right? Doesn't mean you got to watch it all the time. It doesn't mean you have to watch every single thing, but you are supposed to stay aware and awake. So I pray that we're all able to do that without, again, letting fear come into our hearts, because we don't want to give our adversary any place. And again, I want to thank all of you who are with us here on YouTube, on Facebook, as well as Rumble. And it's always an honor that we get to share across these different platforms. And I do believe Elohim is taking them over. One of the things that I continue to see is more and more people awakening, more and more people asking very hard questions, questions that people who are simply repeating the party line are not able to answer. And this is a very good moment. This is a moment when I believe Elohim is moving by his Ruach, by his spirit, to awaken his people, to explain things to them, and to ensure that we are not deceived. Because remember, in Matthew 24, he was very clear when asked about these days. What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the age? And he said, um, take heed that no man deceive you. So we knew right then that this would be a time of great deceit. A lot of lies would be exposed. And in fact, he warned us that these would be the days of the brightness of the king's coming. And in that brightness, all of the machinations of man, all of the games that they had been playing would all come out into the light. And so that, unfortunately, is a messy process. And that is not easy. It's one of those things that there's times when you go, I could have lived my whole life without knowing that. Lots of things come out like that you're going, I really didn't need to know that, but it did need to come out, right? And it did need to be exposed. But some things are just gruesome. So steel your hearts, ladies and gentlemen, and understand that these days that we're going into are difficult days. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we have a website that we place all of our articles on, and anything that we're talking about gets put on this website right here. It's called remnantwatch.org, remnantwatch.org, or I'm sorry, remnantwatch.com. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Remnant House. remnantwatch.com. And here's where we place all of the stories that we do and we put up there. And saints, this has been really a labor of love. I really thank all of the members of Remnant House who make this possible. You guys are awesome. You are fantastic. And I'm just grateful for every one of you. Now, I also want to encourage you to share that link. So don't just share these broadcasts, but share the Remnant Watch link as well. Because again, it's a quick scan and you can catch up quickly, really quickly, which is good. because we don't, again, want people to make it too difficult for people to kind of catch up, see what's going on, and get back to what they were doing. I think about Nehemiah, and they were trying to send him open letters and get him distracted. And he had a wall to build. He had things to do. You want to get informed, but you don't want to be caught up in all this stuff. And so that is what we do. And on that, let's get into the news. And as we can see from our top story tonight, the IDF is pounding, or they did pound Damascus, Syria, and folks, this is now becoming an escalated conflict, right? So we're seeing more and more effort to escalate this, and we knew that that was the intention, and that was a lot of the war hawks and a lot of the warmongers spoken of in the book of Revelation would make their presence known to try to get everybody in a conflict. And sure enough, that's where we're headed, if you will. And the IDF airstrikes pound Damascus as Syria warns that it is ready for war. If you haven't been paying close attention to what's going on in the Middle East, you need to start doing so. Yeah, it's a good point. A lot of times we check out, and this is the kind of thing that starts happening when we're not paying attention. For months, the fighting has almost been limited to Israel and Hamas, but events on the northern front are really starting to heat up. And this is something that we had been paying attention to actually for some time, because as you all can recall, all you very sharp people, whoa, what happened there? Got a little out of line there. Let me get that back on. You very sharp people had been watching this, and we knew that, we started watching them starting to create a secondary front on the northern border of Israel with a Hezbollah. So there was that effort, and we were wondering, why would you want to go starting a conflict with those folks when you're already in a conflict, and a heated one, right there in Gaza? But again, when you understand and think about, well, they're trying to expand this conflict, again, 10,000-foot view, what's really going on here? Is this really just about these, or is this just a match that's being lit to light a bigger fire, right? So that's what we're watching. And I do believe that we are headed toward larger conflict, but already we have seen mass loss of life, right? So this is one of the things that was prophesied to us among the 10 things that we would see before the coming of Mashiach. We received prophetic word in 2014. And one of those items that now can be checked off the list is mass loss of life in the Middle East. And we'd seen several things that were war that would bring mass loss, so not just natural disasters or things like that, but a war. And so are we done, or are we going to see more? I suspect that we're going to see a lot more, but we're already meeting that checkpoint. We've already done that when there's tens of thousands of people that have died in this conflict alone since October 7th. And so it is horrific. It is sad, but it is our reality, and we need to get our brain wrapped around it. One of the biggest problems that people have when disaster strikes is they have a difficulty letting go of the previous status quo and adjusting quickly enough to make modifications. That's why there's so many extra victims in a disaster. You'll find people trying to hold on to things like their house or their car or their things when the status quo is quickly shifting. So that can be very dangerous. And so one of the things I encourage everybody to do is be very fluid, move like wind. When Elohim says to move, it's time to move. Don't get too attached to anything. And we just found out this news. Many of you, again, have been watching very closely. Some of these things are already aware of this, but there's some stuff that's really happening that is changing the landscape just a little bit, which again is the uncovering of the skirt, right? So Elohim promised us that he would discover their secrets, that he would embarrass them internationally. Well, this was embarrassing, okay? I mean, hello. Hamas military compound found beneath the UN agency headquarters in Gaza. Oops. Subterranean complex had air-conditioned rooms with computer servers and office space. Gaza City, hidden deep below the headquarters of the United Nations Aid Agency for Palestinians here, is a Hamas complex with rows of computer servers that Israel armed forces say served as an important communication center and intelligence hub for the Islamist militant group. And of course, the rest of this is beyond a paywall, but you get the point. And you almost always get the point, by the way, in the first paragraph. Just FYI. But yeah, and so now this not only reveals that where this particular headquarters was, which frankly I've been saying, and I think many people have been saying, why wasn't this one of the first targets, right? And why are we attacking civilians if this is who you're after, these guys, right? So this is a bit of sloppy policing, if you ask me, but I digress. Nevertheless, they did find the compound. They are dismantling Hamas, whatever its origin, it's coming down, right? So maybe that's the reason why there's now movement in other areas and other directions to create a bigger conflict, a change in the conflict, right? So we're going to keep an eye on that. But nevertheless, this is a very interesting piece of information. It puts the UN square in the crosshairs. And there's a number of countries that now are very suspicious of the UN and its actual motives to undermine the sovereignty of nation states. After all, where did the UN get its power? Well, it got its power from sovereign nations. Where did the sovereign nations get that power? Well, they got that power from their sovereign people. And so these people don't seem to understand the silliness of their logic. You can't be an authorized sovereign power above all of that if you've taken away the sovereignty of the very people that gave you that power. What you're trying to do is subjugation. That's not going to work. Not in an era of light. It might have worked in the dark ages, but as long as there's communication and even attempts to cut that down as a world, we've all become accustomed to being in communication. And so even if you were to shut down, as they have done in the past with China, remember a lot of their news is censored and what have you, it doesn't stop them. It doesn't stop them from getting information. It just makes it harder, makes it more challenging, but it doesn't stop them. And any more than killing 50 million people stopped the scriptures from coming out to the public. These powers that be like to try to utilize their strength, thinking that that will work, and it never does. It actually makes it worse. So that has been the history of Earth. It's been the ebb and flow. And I believe we're seeing the culmination of that very same thing. And a lot of this is really, theatrics generated in order to get the people to the place mentally where they can bring about what they would like to bring about. So some of this is scare tactic. Some of this is fear mongering. I look at articles like this, and that's exactly what comes to my mind. It's just fear mongering. The guy that could replace Putin warns that war with the West could result in an apocalypse and the end to everything. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us what we already knew. The Russians have warned us over and over again that they will use nuclear weapons if they are forced into a direct war with Western powers. Okay. This is utter nonsense. And I'm going to tell you why. Again, we have already been connected. The people of Russia and the people of America recognize that they have a common enemy. They are not adversaries. The people of the earth are figuring out who the actual enemies are. And they're not the citizenry of any individual nation or country. They are actors and players who utilize populations for cover and for manipulation, but these are small numbers, and the world is waking up to this. It's a good thing. It's a good moment because they're not going with the head fake. You know what I mean? And I like to say the 90s called and they want their, foreign policies back. These things that used to work when you only had 3 news agencies. right? When you had total control of, news outlets, you might have been able to pull off some of these maneuvers. But as long as there's independent media, and as long as there's people that are critically thinking and reviewing together, like you all who are very sharp, it makes it difficult for them to spin that yarn like they used to. And frankly, they keep getting caught. So there's that, right? So every time they try to bring some of these things, they get caught. So that's why I believe that you're going to see some actors, and this may be one of them, where they go kind of all out, still trying to get it going. It's like they just won't take no for an answer, and they're going to push and push and push. And until cooler heads stop this nonsense, this is what we're going to see. And again, as we look at the Middle East theater of operation, I know a lot of people feel very strongly either one side or the other. I'm on the side of the children. I don't care what they are, whether they're Palestinian, Israeli, Syrian. I don't care. I'm on the children's side. I mean, I don't believe the children did anything to anybody. And so when I see children dying, I don't care whose children they are, it breaks my heart, and I begin to pray. And I believe Elohim is seeing this, and this is going to be a moment many will answer for their actions during this time. But light just continues to shine, and more people are asking hard questions, and that is a good thing. Panic is mounting in Rafah right now as overlooming Israeli offensive after night strikes. And some of these strikes were really rough. And again, I understand a lot of the passions on both sides, and I respect those passions. Nevertheless, I'm here for the children. So I would be telling both sides, excuse me, hang on a minute. Let me just grab the children. Then you two can go back to your fighting. That's how I feel. Right. And I'm sure maybe some of you feel the same way. Maybe you're just as concerned about what you're seeing happening to the children. The Israeli strikes that lit up the night in Gaza's southern city of Rafah. So they moved everyone from northern Gaza, right? And now they're attacking southern Gaza. So they already made it I mean, it's just horrific what's already happened, and it's just going to get worse. Gaza's southern city of Rafah on Monday sent pulses of fear through the 1.4 million Palestinians for whom that strip of land has become a shelter of last resort. Israel's army described the overnight attacks as cover for a special forces mission to rescue two elderly Israeli Argentine hostages. The operation succeeded, freeing Fernando Simon Marman, 60, and Luis R. 70. The human cost was massive. At least 67 people were killed throughout the city, the Gaza Health Ministry said. So again, there are some people that'll be like, yay, the two hostages got saved, which we are happy that they did, but 67 people died. That's not something to ignore. And it's a very sad moment. So continue to pray for those in harm's way, no matter what side they're on, because again, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of Elohim. And this is something that we're going to continue to see more of. I mean, that's the sad part of this whole review and the time that we're in, is the loss of life. And the good news for you is Psalm 91. So those of you that are in the secret place of the Most High, who know his name and abide in that place, then only with your eyes will you see the recompense of the wicked. Now they're continuing, again, like I said, to heat this theater up. And this is exactly what we're seeing with these drone strikes. So now the U.S., along with the Israeli forces, all right, so they're starting to become more and more aggressive. And again, they like the high ground. So as soon as they feel like they have high ground, as soon as they feel like, hey, they're justified, oh boy, look out. Drone strike on vehicle in Baghdad kills Kataib, Hezbollah commander. Iraq has witnessed tit-for-tat attacks between hardline Iran-backed armed groups and U.S. forces stationed there. And, of course, the commander from Kataib Hezbollah, an Iran-backed armed group in Iraq that the Pentagon has blamed for attacking its troops was killed in a U.S. strike on Wednesday, the U.S. military says. U.S. forces conducted a unilateral strike in Iraq in response to the attacks on U.S. service members, killing a Hataib Hezbollah commander responsible for directly planning and participating in attacks on on U.S. forces in the region. A statement from the military said it did not name the commander. So we don't know who it is they killed. We don't know anything more than that. But hey, nothing to see here, folks, because this was a bad guy. This is very dangerous when you can brushstroke and order the execution of people. No trial, no nothing, no, we don't even know who the person is. What could go wrong? And this is why war is their great big eraser. There's too much damage and too many things happen for anyone to really make sense of it. So crime is, people get away with crime as a result. And this is very, very sad. No matter whose side again you're on any of these things, to watch these things start to unfold this way is not pleasant. But nevertheless, this is the hour we're in, and we have to be tough enough to deal with it because the status quo is changing. And if that war comes over here, okay, if you start seeing that kind of conflict going on in your part of the world, you can't stand up and go, hey, stop that. You've got to adjust quickly. The people that adjust, that know that this is not going to go away quickly once it starts, are the ones that will endure. The ones that are trying to maintain their previous life and the previous status quo, those are the ones that usually get destroyed. Just FYI. Bit of an anthropologist, so I'm just telling you what I see and what history has shown. Now, you guys are all aware, of the things going on the southern border, right? All the, illegal immigration that's coming across, the migrant move and all that. And now there's a lot of attention that's been thrown to that. And we've been paying attention to that. Obviously, there's some a conflict brewing in Texas. Many of you are completely aware of that. You're very sharp. And so, listen, this is going to get dicier as we go. And especially when you take a look at this headline, because we have to remember that we're in a global conflict, whether hot or cold. This global conflict is real. And our adversaries may be pre-positioning their forces behind enemy lines. Take a look at this. Chinese migrants, with some with the help of TikTok, have become the fastest growing group trying to cross the U.S. southern border. That's alarming information, folks. After China's prolonged and strict COVID lockdown destroyed her business, a woman decided to leave her 2 young children and family and travel to Mexico and cross into the U.S. through a hole at the border. She's far from alone. Chinese migrants, and of course, their lead story is going to be a woman. We all know that it's mostly military-age men, okay? Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group trying to cross into U.S. from Mexico. Last year, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, or Border Protection rather, reported 37,000 Chinese citizens were apprehended as they illegally crossed the border. That's 50 times more than 2 years earlier. 50 times? Wow. Many of the migrants say they made the journey to escape China's increasingly repressive political climate and sluggish economy. The mom, through a translator, told 60 Minutes that what motivated her was more than economic reasons. It could be summed up in one word: freedom. Freedom. I've come here for freedom. Isn't it funny how we were talking about socialism, and nobody ever breaks into a socialist country. So there's that. We do appreciate that they will definitely have more freedom here than they have in communist China. So the point makes sense, especially to us. So you're writing this article to us, so it's like an excuse. Pull on the feels. Illegal, still illegal. So we still have a problem here, and there are more things going on than just crossing borders, right? Because we know that. And as a matter of fact, this story adds a little color to this that that's sort of I don't know, adds a little texture, right? Because after all, China has had a persistent access to U.S. critical infrastructure. They're saying for the last 5 years, uh, China's backed hackers have had access to some major U.S. critical infrastructure for at least 5 years, according to an intelligence advisory released just this last week, folks. Why does that matter? The hacking campaign laid out in the report marks a sharp escalation in China's willingness to seize U.S. infrastructure, going beyond the typical effort to steal state secrets. Well, if you feel like you're owed money and you're not getting paid, you might start trying to grab assets. So there's that too. The advisory provides the fullest picture to date of how a key China hacking group has gained and maintained access to some U.S. critical infrastructure. And the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the National Security Agency, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation released an advisory just last week to warn critical infrastructure operators about China's ongoing hacking interests. So this makes the plot thicken just a little bit, doesn't it? Because now we see that we have this effort going on, and how can that affect their big enemy, the USA? How could that affect them? After all, the USA is number one in terms of its economy size, and China is right on our heels, number two. And boy, oh boy, they could overtake us by turning lights off, right? They could overtake a lot of things. They could certainly cause a lot of damage in the United States. So it's a very dangerous thing, especially if it's part of a military operation. Do we know it is or not? No, but it certainly is possible, right? You never look at people's intentions. You only look at their capability. Their intentions can change. Their intentions can change. You who are believers are finding that out. A lot of things that they set up with this is for the bad guys. This is for, the people in the T word, the T word, that's the bad guys, right? Finishes with an ist, right? Okay. Well, then they just designate you that. And you go, wait a minute, I thought we passed that law for those other bad guys. Never look at intentions. Intentions can change. Capabilities, what you got to keep an eye on. Okay. And meanwhile, we're seeing dramatic change right within the United States itself. This was a story that came out early last week. It came out after our last report, but is now, people are now waking up to this reality. So do we have another 2008 level crisis on our hands? It's looking pretty bad, folks, really bad. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But the real estate crisis is looming over banks. And this is really, really a challenge because people are leaving the city centers. The sell-off in regional bank stocks looks to set worsen on Wednesday after Moody's cut New York Community Bank Corp's credit rating to junk status. So this isn't good. Fears are now rising among investors over the United States' distressed commercial real estate sector. This comes as a crucial lifeline created during last year's banking crisis is set to expire. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, in order to prevent the same meltdown that they had the last time, so those of you who are aware of 2008, there was a massive meltdown. They created a new method for banks to stay liquid, basically. And without getting into too many details, because it really doesn't matter, the bottom line is that program that was keeping the banks basically afloat ends in a month. So, of course, they're concerned what's going to happen when this program ends. Well, you don't need to be, we don't need to be naive about that. We know exactly what's going to happen. Things are going to close. Businesses are going to shut down. There's going to be a ripple effect. You can't shut off the siphon of money and not expect there to be some effect. And so that's exactly what it's being set up for. And this is going to begin to really affect the economy in a big, big way. Commercial real estate's a big driver, folks. That's why, city centers are really huge and they're important. When they did the COVID thing, when they did the lockdowns, this really affected real estate. And now what the problem is that, they couldn't just snap their fingers and make everybody come back downtown, right? They couldn't just snap their fingers and make everybody, go back to the status quo. Once people got out and free and learned how to work remotely, they decided that maybe I don't want to work downtown. Maybe I don't want to go all the way down there. Maybe I don't want to go pay for parking and gas and there's crime and all kinds of things going on. Maybe I'll just work remotely, right? And so, well, then what do we need these towers for? And remember in the 80s, I don't, some of you guys are young, so you don't know anything. You're wet behind the ear. But those of us that were parents in the 80s and, coming up, the mall was the place to go, right? I mean, everybody was at the mall. They did shows about the mall. I mean, the mall was the thing. You remember that? Now, look, malls are half empty all over the country. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their bills. That's been going on for a while. And so now it's extending beyond that. And they're trying to pretend it's fine, but it isn't. And it's about to hit. And so this is one of those things that is going to affect us whether we like it or not. It's like one of those, why do I care about this? Well, you're going to care about it because of the ripple effect, not because of the direct effect, but the ripple effect. All of those employees now looking for a job, all of them now competing for your job, for other things, right? And look at this story here. We're seeing this effect. This is right on cue. Under siege, retailers flee cities. Okay, so this is the big real reason. Because of the policies, which you and I both know are crazy, okay, there's no prevention of theft, and so these stores feel this way. They feel like they're under siege, right? Retailers flee cities as unarmed security and public authorities fail to curb thefts. Businesses have cited the rise of online shopping and declining in-store profits for pulling out of urban centers from San Francisco to New York. So it's not one city or another, it's all of them. Okay, and they're declining. They're no longer re-upping their leases. What's that going to do to the real estate, commercial real estate in your downtown centers? Secondly, what does that do to the bonds and the loans and the financial institutions that were invested in these buildings? How does that ripple against them? What's then the actual adjusted value of this real estate after the decline of use? I mean, a lot of things are going to get affected by this, folks. And these loans and these mortgages are bundled together for investors. And so that is what a lot of people have their mutual funds and investment portfolios. A lot of times they're tied up in this kind of real estate. So it's going to ripple. There's no way around it. It's going to affect mutual funds and investments, derivatives, all this stuff's going to get affected. Not to mention the fact that, again, you're going to have that many more unemployed people, that much more turnover going on in society. And also, don't underestimate the vagabond effect, if you will. Once people start realizing that no one's sort of watching the store, we saw what starts happening. People just walk in and start, robbing at, indiscriminately. And we did see that. So this is really starting to affect the common man. And this is one of the areas that I've been paying attention to. I know you guys, again, are very sharp. So you're on top of these things, but I point them out just for those that may not be quite paying attention to it. Because maybe your life is very stable. And if you are walking with the king, of course, your life is more stable. You might be completely oblivious to all these things going on because your life is wonderful. And I understand that. And that's beautiful. And we bless you. But it's not beautiful for everybody. How many know the curse is lighting on some people, right? And a record number of Americans can't afford their rent. Lawmakers are scrambling to help. Okay. This is really becoming a problem. Okay. And a single mom, Caitlin Colbert, watched as rent for her 2-bedroom apartment doubled, then tripled. then quadrupled over a decade in Denver from 750. So that's, can you imagine that, folks? I really struggle to imagine this. You moved in, the rent was 750. And 3 years later, it's over $3,000 for the same space? What? Every month, like millions of Americans, Colbert juggled her costs, paid rent or swim team fees, or for one of her kids, rent or school supplies, rent or groceries. Colbert, a social worker who helps people stay financially afloat, would often arrive home to notices giving her 30 days to pay rent and a late fee or face evictions. Okay. So, I mean, this is wild. First of all, that's an enormous amount of money. That's like paying a mortgage on like $400,000 or something, and they're asking you to pay that for rent. So, I mean, if it's not golden everything, I'm not sure what in the world is going on there. And this is unfortunately what continues to happen. And people are, again, taking it for granted. And, when an empire is falling, when things are coming apart, it's not like you get a note, saying, hey, by the way, your country's about to go, glub, glub. It just happens, folks. Okay. It just happens. And there are a lot of indicators. There's this article that's on Remnant Watch you can take a look at. 12 absolutely insane examples that show just how far the U.S. has fallen. And we review a lot of things that, continue to show that. And here's number one: a social media influencer returned to couch to Costco after using it for more than 2 years is telling her followers to buy all their furniture from Costco because you can return it when you don't like it anymore. What? Yeah. You laugh. See the effect of fluoride in the water, folks? it's crazy, and there's 11 more. So go check out that article. I'm sure it'll give you a chuckle, but also give you a lot of concern, because again, this is indicating not just the economic decline, but how many know that it's reflecting the moral decline and the intelligence decline and the decline of the sense of values and the sense of respect. So this is not going to be an easy thing to deal with. And frankly, now we have the prospects of AI. AI is the new thing, right? In fact, China, did you guys hear about this? This was wild. I got to show you this. Tong Tong. What is Tong Tong? Do you know Tong Tong? Oh, know you not about Tong Tong? Well, the world's first AI child. What? Unveiled at an exhibition, Tong Tong currently speaks and behaves like a 3 or 4-year-old. Get set for tantrums. Are you kidding me? The world's first AI child, developed by Chinese scientists, possesses, that's a great word, possesses the emotional development and cognitive ability of a 3 or 4-year-old human child. Tong Tong, which means little girl, is the name given by scientists at the Beijing Institute for General Artificial Intelligence. You cannot make this stuff up, folks. And I saw an article where, they were promoting, well, they're promoting this here too, but they were promoting to the Chinese AI boyfriends and AI this and AI that. It's getting weird. It's getting really weird with this AI stuff. And now the Vision. How many of you heard about the Apple Vision Pro? Right, the Vision stuff. This looks like the Matrix to me. Yeah, it's a bad movie. Jeff says, "You're not wrong, brother. You're not wrong." Beware, the Apple Vision Pro may rewire our brains in unexpected ways. So I'm seeing these people going around with these glasses on. I saw a guy get pulled over and he had a pair of glasses on like this as he was driving with them on. And I'm like, are you people insane? Yeah, they're going to slightly go insane. The reviews are in. The tech press is lauding the Apple Vision Pro headset for delivering on the company's promises. Well designed and video, sound, and startling, precise. It's like a Minority Report. Yeah, remember that movie? Okay, with the pre-crime and already. Okay, and so all is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Except for, well, there just might be this small, tiny problem when I bury it in the middle of paragraph 3, and hopefully we can just squeeze it by you all. Okay. They're hoping this, what do they say? Virtual world will be so compelling that you won't just visit. They're hoping you'll live there. What? They're hoping you live there. That unfortunately could have some very weird and very messy consequences for the human brain. Researchers have found that widespread long-term immersion in VR, which is virtual reality, headsets could literally change, not just change perception. Watch this, could literally change the way we perceive the world, not just our visual acuity, but the whole world and one another. We now have companies that are advocating that you spend many hours each day in them, said Jerry Balinson, director of Virtual Human Interaction Lab at Stanford. You got many, many people, and they're wearing it for many, many hours, and everything magnifies at scale. Okay, meaning our brains are able to undergo a massive society-wide experiment that could rewire our senses of the world around us and make it even harder to agree on what constitutes reality. Listen, folks, we already have enough trouble trying to get people to look at reality. Half the people you're arguing with on Facebook are drunk or on drugs. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. You don't even realize how many people are under the influence of one thing or another. And now, what could go wrong, folks? Let's just go ahead and put on some AI glasses. You know what this reminds me of? This is old. I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but there was an old episode of a Star Trek that, in the 80s, I think it came out. And they all were wearing these glasses that was like this game, and it hypnotized the whole crew. And Wesley Crusher had to break the spell, and it was basically witchcraft, right? We also see the movie The Matrix, where people are all asleep and just living a virtual reality world. This is scary stuff, folks, because people have such unhappiness in their life and such misery, having rejected the gospel, having rejected the blessing that you all enjoy, that they're looking for any escape. Why do you think they're doing those drugs and alcohol and everything else? Looking for an escape. And so this is very alarming and something that we need to be very careful about. I had to date myself. I said Chekhov. No, Wesley Crusher as a new generation. Come on, man. I didn't like those old dudes. back when they used shows to try to keep selling us space, and that construct is falling apart. But now here's what's really concerning is that while they're all taking their trips in their virtual worlds and disappearing into these psychotic breaks. Basically, it's an engineered psychotic break is what it looks like to me. It looks like the results of some MK Ultra has finally given them some insight, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see the comeback of the insane asylum. I'm just saying. Okay, the insane asylum here, just wear these. All right, so things are getting wild. They're getting wild, and they're going to get wilder. And speaking of wild, what all of a sudden happened and the world's starting to shake? Are you guys seeing this? Here's why the recent Oklahoma earthquake is alarming. Have you heard about this? The quake would be tied as the fourth strongest in Oklahoma history if seismologists maintain the rating, according to Oklahoma Geological Survey. And after a dramatic spike in earthquakes in the early 2010s, state regulators in Oklahoma began taking steps to limit the injection of wastewater from oil and gas extraction deep into the ground. As a result, a number of earthquakes, particularly large ones, declined steady over the years. But a couple of larger quakes in recent weeks, including a 5.1 magnitude trembler over the weekend that was one of the strongest in years, is a reminder of the danger of the last one, and that shook the area and dotted with such injection wells. And so they're blaming it on the fracking operations, right? So that's definitely a factor. But it's interesting that it's not just there. So if it were just Oklahoma, we could say, oh, you fracking guys, you knuckleheads, you cut that out, right? Except it isn't just Oklahoma. So that's the challenge, is that how do you now come up with the explanation when it isn't just Oklahoma? Are they fracking everywhere, right? What about Southern California? Were they fracking there too? Is that the reason why? Because take a look at this, guys. And we know Southern California is being slammed, but Southern California was shaken by 13 earthquakes over 25 minutes. Several earthquakes, the largest of which registered just 1 point under the one we were just talking about. A magnitude of 5.0 struck El Centro in the Imperial Valley. And so parts of California were hit by more than a dozen earthquakes overnight, with 13 shaking the state during a span of just 25 minutes. That, my friends, is called a wake-up call. When did they get it? In the middle of the night, overnight. What are you doing? What's going on there? It's a wake-up call. And I do believe that we need to be paying attention to this, because one of the things that he told us would be earthquakes in diverse places. He gave me a 10-point list, as I mentioned, in 2014. 9 of the 10 items have already come to pass. We're only waiting on number 10. And this is the list he gave me prior to the coming of the king. So we're close. 9 out of the 10 items have already been checked off. That's wild. And maybe this is the reason why. Maybe there's something going on under the water, maybe in the the place where the island of Mu used to be, right? The continent of Mu. I just heard about that on my lunch break. That was awesome. The things that are coming out now are fabulous. And so take a look at this. Tectonic plate under the Pacific Ocean is being torn apart, according to scientists. And while it's the reigning theory now, the road to acceptance was long and bumpy. And so they're trying to figure out what's causing this, right? And again, when they can come up with a scientific explanation, then they can discount scriptural prophecies and so forth. Oh, it's nothing. It's not a big deal. It's just natural. It's just normal. Yeah, but it's all happening at the same time. And who made that happen? A new study looking at the 4 plateaus in the Western Pacific Ocean suggests that these expansive areas aren't rigid slabs, but weak spots being yanked apart by distant forces at the plate's edge. And I would remind everyone that our world is literally replete with evidences of damage, evidences of mud floods, evidences of massive shakes and changes. We've also seen what looks like melting and meltology. So there's a lot of new research that's coming out going, I think we need to revisit what may have happened in our world, especially not even that long ago. So, blowing these things off and looking at them as they're insignificant is not wise. And I would remind everyone about 2019, when, as a ministry, we did go on Operation Prayer Wall all around the United States and blew the shofar through the entire time. When we hit California, we did not go to the coast. He sent us up the middle of the state and explained to me that what was west of that point would not fare well. So when I watch these things starting to manifest, well, let's just say we're seeing again another word that confirms that these are things that are coming to a culmination. And as a matter of fact, there was another rare. So we keep seeing this. This is the thing we look for. So what do we look for, guys? 10,000 foot view. What are we looking for? Patterns. Patterns. Always looking for patterns, right? So look at this. Rare. So there it goes. There's that word. So we just saw rare in Oklahoma. We just saw rare in California. Now we're going to see rare 4.0 earthquake recorded off Florida's east coast, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. A rare 4.0 magnitude earthquake was recorded off Florida's east coast late Wednesday night. A lot happened this last week, guys. Okay. The U.S. Geological Survey reported. According to the USGS, the earthquake occurred about 100 miles off the coast of Cape Canaveral around 10:48 p.m. Once again, a wake-up call. As of 11:35 a.m. Thursday, 96 people submitted felt reports to the agency according to CBS News Miami. And so people felt it. Okay, they definitely knew there was an earthquake, and they're being shaken, right? They're being shook. So you guys are shaking the earth, man. You know that? You guys are praying, you're interceding, and what I tell you would happen? You're shaking the earth. You think I'm kidding? You think I'm joking? How many of you been praying for Hawaii? How many? Come on. How many? Look what my brother just posted, right? And we start praying for these things, and look what happened. 5.7 magnitude earthquake rattles Hawaiian Islands, shaking felt across the state. Okay, one or two, but this many, that's a lot. Okay, guys, we're seeing a pattern here. Honolulu, Hawaii. A 5.7 magnitude earthquake struck Hawaii Island on Friday morning, producing strong shaking felt across the state. The quake did not trigger a tsunami threat. The Hawaii Department of Education investigated reports of structural damage to two Hawaii Island schools, but determined the cracks were not due to the earthquake. And so, they're again, they always downplay these things, kind of like Jansen Jambries when Moses was doing signs and wonders by the, Elohim was doing signs and wonders through Moshe and Aaron. And they would just, explain it away, or, like act like, oh, it was no big deal. Or they called them the magicians and like, hey, we'll do that too. Until he got to a certain point where they couldn't duplicate it. And then it was like, whoa, something's going on here, right? This is number 4. I mean, that's a lot of earthquake stories that just started popping up and have us concerned. And again, like I said, that's the last sign. We're supposed to have one massive one. I believe personally, it's when his feet hit the Mount of Olives that last sign, of course, is complete. So we are literally at that point where there's nothing left that has to happen, if you will, before he can move. And so this is really, really changing. And I think that this story actually I should have hit before because it's reflective of the economic decline. But I wanted to share this guys with you guys because it again it's like everything is falling. Everything that we thought, that holds society together. Like I was reading a story about Atlanta, and 1,200 homes have been taken over by looters. Okay, 1,200 homes. Yeah, we're not worried about sun's coronal mass. You never see me cover stories like that because I don't believe that it affects us. I've lived through so many of these. It's an X flare and nothing happens. It's a bunch of nonsense. But what is serious here? This will affect you. Forget about the solar flare. This is what's going to affect you. Squatters are taking over homes all over the nation on an industrial scale. People can't even go on vacation because they may come home and somebody else is taking over their house. Squatting has become a problem, especially in certain parts of the nation, but now it's happening on an industrial scale. Watch this, guys, because this is not a joke. Look at this. This is crazy. Okay, thanks to online listings, it's easier than ever to identify properties that are vacant, and many states have laws that make it exceedingly difficult to get squatters out once they've settled in. In some cases, squatters are able to live rent-free in beautiful homes for months or even years. So they can't afford rent. This is going to look appealing to a lot of people. Pay attention. This is becoming an absolutely massive problem, especially in certain areas of the country. For example, this is what I was just saying. It is being reported that squatters have taken over 1,200 homes in the Atlanta area alone. Okay, that's just Atlanta. Just Atlanta. And now that they're being successful, what do you think that's going to happen? Okay, look, pay attention, guys. All right, because this is going to affect you. Okay, look at this thing. I couldn't believe when I read this. I could not believe this article, and it's on Remnant Watch. But I'm just telling you, this is blow your mind stuff. Look at this. If you can believe it, there's even one company that's been running ads on social media offering to find a prime squatter home in Atlanta for you for a fee. Are you joking me? At first glance, it looks like another real estate pro hustling to rent homes on social media. But one-time payment homes, check this out. They're advertising it. Watch this. The site makes it clear that these are squatter homes and spells out just what it means in the pinned Insta story. The company's owners will come out. So will the police. The police will tell you there's nothing they can do about it. Squatters' rights. And recently, One Time Payment Homes has actually been running a New Year's special. You cannot make this up. Look at this. Okay, 1,400 will get you the keys. Once you get the keys, you actually have a contract, right? 1,400 will get you the keys to a squatter home so you can stack money and turn your life around. Are you joking me? Whoever is behind one-time payment homes should be in prison. But that is not how America works in 2024. So, if you had any questions about them literally and intentionally trying to destroy the United States, I think that just answered your question. Okay? And this is some scary stuff, folks. Scary stuff going on right now. And of course, to make things much better. I mean, this is definitely going to improve the economic situation. Okay? Because we need to make good, smart decisions right now. And Biden's latest climate rules crackdown on manufacturing is just what we needed. just the perfect time for this. Let's go ahead and put on a bunch of new regulations, right? Ignoring industry warnings of economic, what's this word? Devastation. That's what they're calling. They're saying, oh my goodness, are you crazy? Yep. Yeah, I think they are actually. The Biden administration finalized regulations severely tightening restrictions on fine particulate matter that the manufacturing and energy sectors are legally allowed to emit, an action that industry said would have devastating economic consequences. The EPA unveiled the regulations on Wednesday. Man, a lot happened midweek last week, huh? Okay. In a joint announcement with environmental activists saying limiting particulate matter known as PM 2.5 or soot would have health benefits for Americans nationwide. The rule makers lower they're concerned about our health. They're not concerned about your health. That's what makes some of this laughable. It's like, we're doing this for your health. Yeah, so it doesn't matter you don't have money for groceries, right? But we're gonna do this for your health because we just can't think of anything else to do. We have reached a new place, folks, a new place. And it's very, very sad, but it is real. And unfortunately, um, it's going to require you praying, and it's going to require people taking back their sovereignty, taking back their space, and establishing new places for us to live. Because I don't know if you're catching the hint here, but they're dropping some massive levels of hints about what they are intending to do and how they feel about you. And frankly, a lot of this is, well, it's what we expected because America, as the prophecy that we've received in 1999, America was to be judged and neutralized and no longer to be effective on the world scene. So, are we watching the end of the empire? And I wonder about this in the prophetic. So, this, first of all, is a story we shared last week. And unfortunately, we have to give a sad update. If you remember, we mentioned that there was a helicopter that they found, but they didn't find the 5 Marines. And so, unfortunately, the 5 U.S. Marines were confirmed dead after the helicopter went missing in California. So I just wanted to update you guys on this because this is a very sad story. Obviously, we don't like to lose people. 5 U.S. Marines aboard a helicopter that went missing on a trip from Nevada to California were confirmed dead on Thursday. 5 is the number of grace. First responders found the crashed CH-53E Super Stallion helicopter following hours of searching on Wednesday. A lot happened on Wednesday, but they did not find the crew until Thursday morning. It is with heavy heart and profound sadness that I share the loss of 5 outstanding Marines from the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing. And so what I found interesting about this story is how come I'm not quite 100% sure. There's probably going to be more to the story coming out, but nevertheless, what does that say prophetically? What is that saying? That this wasn't even in a war. This wasn't even in a conflict. And you're losing soldiers without any enemies. That's not a good sign. You got damage coming into your nation. You've got economic deterioration. You've got sabotage. You've got infiltration. Your borders wide open. This is rough. This is looking rough. And so again, continue to pray, saints, and pray for your brothers and sisters that Elohim would lead them to the places they need to be. And speaking of our brothers and sisters, there's a lot of people concerned about the increase of violence. And one of the things that I was told um, several decades ago was that's exactly what we're going to see. And we're going to see it in places of worship where people think they're safe. And sure enough, we just saw this story. This just came out where a suspect killed 2 injured in a shooting incident in Lakewood Church. So some of you were aware of this, and this person did legally purchase a rifle, and they went on a shooting spree, or were going to go on a shooting spree, I guess. 2 people are in the hospital after a shooting at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in southwest Houston on Sunday, according to police. The Harris County Sheriff's Office said deputies responded to an active shooting at the megachurch near the Southwest Freeway shortly after 2 p.m. In a press conference, Houston police said a woman in her early 30s entered the church on the west side, armed with a long rifle, wearing a trench coat and a backpack. She was reportedly accompanied by a small child between 4 to 5 years old and opened fire immediately after entering the building. Police said 2 off-duty officers engaged and fired at the female, killing her at the scene. According to authorities, the child was hit and is in critical condition at the hospital. I don't know how bad your aim has to be to shoot that low, but okay. Let's pray for this 5-year-old because she certainly is innocent in this little thing. But that's horrific. That's sad. And unfortunately, you can speculate, which of course they will do. They can speculate as to what would motivate this and what would a demon. You walked into a building. I don't care if it's a church, a mall, or a zoo, or anything. Okay. Yeah. The child was a shield. How sad, right? And you open fire. It's called a demon. You have a demon. And so there's your reason. Okay. You don't need to go any further than that. And walked into the place and started shooting. So now there's blood spilled right there at their front door. There's a blood sacrifice. That demon got its job done right there at the door. Right there at the door. So are we confronting evil directly? I believe so. I believe that's exactly where we are as a nation, saints. You are no longer playing tiddlywinks with your enemy. Your adversary is coming out of the shadows, and it is time for the people that are wise and are aware to say, okay, this far, no further. We now see this has gotten to this place. We need to step up to this, right? So you, as the remnant, you have your obligations to pray for your brethren. You have an anointing they don't have, so you have to pray for them. But there are natural things going on as well that are reflecting this. This is tonight's last story. Sorry, I took you a little extra time, but I think you'd want to know about this. This is right here in the home state of Arizona, and there's a bill to ban displays of Satan in public property. You wouldn't think you'd need to pass a law for this, but apparently you do. And it moves forward into the Senate. And so a measure that would keep anything Satan related. So that includes God, Drael, okay? Away from public spaces, passed a state Senate committee on Wednesday morning. Boy, a lot happened on Wednesday, huh? And the committee and government approved SB 1279 by a 5-1 vote, with 2 senators not voting. Republican Senator Jeff Hoffman, who represents southern Maricopa and Pinal counties, introduced the bill, which is also known as the Reject Escalating Satanism by Preserving Core Traditions Act. It would ban any symbols, statues, or displays that represent or honor Satan from being on public property. And I got to say, I'm at least happy to see that they're aware that they're in a fight, that they're in a spiritual battle, that it's not just a natural, conflict and natural problems, but they're recognizing bigger issues. That's good. I think that is part of the awakening as well. I believe you all are starting to realize that we are in a multidimensional conflict, and it most certainly is being motivated by the demonic. So we're seeing our adversary, who we were told would come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time, and woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, right? And so here we're seeing the reflection of that. So these are Bible prophecy things that were spoken to us to prepare us. And then we see things that confirm it. So again, may this encourage you, strengthen you in your inner man, so that you will not take a backward step. Let these things encourage your mind, so that you will know that your fight is important. And just as our brethren who have gone before you will tell you with many testimonies, that if you consecrate yourself, if you dedicate yourself to your task in the spirit, if you will, your assignment, you can do a lot of damage. And as you begin to pray in agreement with your brothers and sisters, why all of a sudden tunnels get found, why all of a sudden children get found, why all of a sudden hiding places are exposed, why all of a sudden the world begins to change. You are shaking the world. And I believe that is the will of Elohim. Continue to do that. Continue to pray, intercede for your fellow brothers and sisters. Pray for them to get wisdom and understanding. There's a lot of strongholds falling in this moment. There's a lot of lies that are being exposed, things that we just took for granted, things we thought were no big deal, things that just even a few years ago I might have said, oh, no big deal. Now I will flat tell you they are extremely dangerous. And so continue in your walk. Some of you are realizing this, and you're coming into a newness of your commitment to be a soldier of the kingdom of Elohim. And let me encourage you in that walk. Don't forget your brothers and sisters. Don't forget those who need you in this hour. And remember that we should fear none. Exactly what my brother just said. Fear none of those things which we shall suffer. Behold, the devil shall come down and cast some of you into prison, that you might be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be found faithful, even if it's on to death. All right? Even if it's on to death, be found faithful, because he will give you the crown of life. Amen. Well, on that note, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us for our weekly update. I pray this message has been a blessing to you. Again, please like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, we love new friends. So come on in. We love hanging out with you who are truly in love with the King and one another. It's always our pleasure to hang out with you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. Good night.